Yes, my people. It's Blocks the Bags. It's another episode. I'm your boy Beach.
I'm your boy Seb.
And this week we are about to uncover business strategies, franchises, mindset. We've got a special guest. But Seb, before we get started, how has your week been?
This week you had a conference, man. It's been strong. Part
you started the
part of
conference,
the exec
man.
committee organizing the first global Black VC conference in the world. It was epic. We had 50 different speakers from literally everywhere from across the world, including Australia. We had countless gems being dropped, millions of impressions. It was the biggest thing happening in the world of VC this week. So I'm pretty chuffed to come out of that, feeling pretty pumped.
Yeah, man. No, it definitely touched culture. I had people that we know mutuals hitting me up, being like, "Why was I not on the list?" You know, I said, "Listen, it's MVP. You know, there's gonna be more. But people definitely felt it for real, and I was mad proud of you, man. Like you hosted a few sessions, you made that happen.
Appreciate
we even linked
that.
up.
Appreciate that.
What's next in terms of that conference war for you?
Yeah.
Are you going to be hosting a couple more things? Are we ready to
Yeah,
announce
for
the
sure.
Blocks the Bag live yet?
For sure. So one of my goals going into 2023 was to get more involved with events. I've always been behind the scenes, computer, digital marketing, getting them ads and conversions online. So I said, events is definitely something to add to my game. This was part of Included VC's sort of first Rise event. It was targeting the sort of Black community. There's going to be a couple more like this throughout the year. So keep your eyes peeled on the socials. We'll let you know when that's popping. But yeah, it's giving me a lot of ideas. The Block Conference, Blocks to Bags, the Block Summit. You know what you can expect from us. Just know that we're chopping. So keep your eyes peeled on this space.
Yeah. So we're definitely going to be doing one community meetup in February, and we'll probably do the summit before April, guys. So if you have any ideas or topics you want to hear, please send them in to us, blockstobags@gmail.com, or hit us up on the social media. For me this week, I did a segment for ITV all on misogyny and masculinity at work, with me literally charity student view. I also did something really random. Like for many years, team socials for me and lots of our entrepreneurs has always been drinks, big events in the evening on a Christmas. Because a lot of my team are remote, we couldn't make it all happen in December. So in January, my PA and I planned a time, which was this week, and we basically put an afternoon together where we got people to come and creatively hang out and chat in a nice co-working space in Borough, London. There's loads of plants, loads of just cool places, had some lunch together. And then we took on pottery. We took over a whole studio in Bermondsey, you know what I'm saying? In our ends.
Love that.
We took over a studio in Bermondsey, and we had a private pottery class where we got the chance to make clay, to paint. We took over our own the sound, put our own music on, then had conversation. And the feedback we've been getting from the team has been sick. People have been making their own reels from the day. So now I'm thinking when it comes to team socials, I want to bring some of the stuff I do in my personal life more into work. So as you know, Seb, like I chop it up and take people to art galleries, and we do all kind of adventure stuff. So I think that is going to be like a really interesting way to kind of do team socials. It's not that we've created this new, but it's new for my business and the way I'm running. And I'd love to hear from other entrepreneurs. How are you guys doing your team socials and bringing your team together in a hybrid world? Because, hey, it's not been easy. A lot of my team do not want to work full-time in the office anymore. So that's been my week. But yeah, Seb, introduce our guests.
We got a very, very special guest on today. We've got Micky over here. Go on, what's your socials? Give us your socials first, just to let people know where to follow you.
Yeah, so I'm actually not really on a lot of socials anymore. So I'm only on LinkedIn, Micky Tasfaye on LinkedIn. That's it for now.
That's it. Follow him on Twitter. And essentially what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about your journey to starting the first pet food business in Ethiopia. Micky's been my boy. He's from the block, Southeast London. You know what it is. We've known each other for a very, very long time. He was actually like the only Ethiopian guy in my block, really and truly. So it makes a lot of sense. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, Micky. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate everything.
Yes, honored to be here. Honored to be with you guys.
Love it. So let's get straight into it. I think first it will be important to start about your journey, your story. We want to know a bit more about your story. So let us know, like, when did you weren't born in the UK, you were going back, it was kind of like coming back home sort of moment, starting your business. So
Yeah.
tell us about your journey in the kind of UK and how it all led to you kind of going back.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wasn't born in the UK. I was born in Ethiopia, and I moved to London when I was 9. And I guess for me, what was interesting about it was I'd never wanted to not live in Ethiopia. And when I was really young, I hated living here. Like, so one of my earliest memories of being here was that when my parents used to have friends around, and people have some drinks, bottles of beer or soft drinks. I used to grab all of them in a plastic bag and put them under the bed, because in Ethiopia that shit is like hella like valuable. People would sell it,
You
and
recycle
I'd
it,
never
yeah.
seen people throw it away. And for me, I'm like, I'm gonna go back to Ethiopia soon.
Yeah.
So I used to keep them.
Like, take the bottles back. We're gonna take
Yeah,
it back
exactly,
and
take
sell
it
them in
back.
Ethiopia.
Original eco warrior.
Yeah.
Exactly. It wasn't even, honestly, I wish I could say I was an eco warrior. It was just more like really focused on the money at that time. But that was probably like an interesting way for me to talk about my journey, because I think I've always had the idea that my life here in the UK was temporary to a degree. I love living here. A lot of what I know is here, and I've lived most of my life here. But at the same time, the overarching like ambition and plan was always to go back to Ethiopia at some point.
Facts.
And over the years, I'd gone back frequently. Sabio and I have talked a lot about, doing stuff in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And I'd go back often, and I always had this kind of anxiety when I'd go back that I was missing out on that cusp of revolution that was coming, whether it's the tech side of it, whether it's just like financial and economic growth in the country. And really, when I started kind of making that plan properly was in 2017. After I just finished my master's, I
Yeah,
went
where were
there.
you? Where were you in life 2017?
Yeah,
Let's
so in
take it back.
2017, I'd just done my master's in philosophy at UCL. It was super, it was great. I did that course mostly not even for a job, but because I hadn't lived in the UK at that point. I had spent my undergrad in the Netherlands, and I came back, and I was just like kind of overwhelmed with what to do, right? So I thought, all right, let me do a degree, give me a bit of time to settle into the country. And as soon as I finished, one thing I knew was I didn't want to apply for jobs the way everyone else around me was doing it. Not because there was anything wrong with that. It just didn't suit my personality and what I wanted to do.
And how were people kind of applying for the? We're talking grad schemes, just big employers, McKinsey, law, like what
Yeah,
what
exactly. It was
even?
that process, right? Like, so for me, for example, when I was going to do my master's, I was working quite like 20, 30 hours a week, trying to fund my education, working in bars. But a lot of my friends, especially like, unis like UCL, where it tends to be a little bit prestigious, you had people who were like completely focused on their education and their long-term careers. So people were doing internships and then applying for grad schemes. And when I was looking at what people are applying for, I thought, this doesn't seem right. Like, I just finished a master's and I'm looking at salaries of like 20K, 24K. It just didn't sit right with me. So honestly, what I did was, I first of all, like after I finished my master's, I just started working in a bar again. I loved that job because I used to be super shy as a child, so it was a way that I learned to kind of be good with people to a degree, right? To like
Very important life
communicate.
skill.
Yeah, honestly, and it was a way to meet new people, to hear different stories. But while I was doing that, obviously in the back of my mind, and increasingly in the front of my mind, was what am I going to do long term? So I went to Ethiopia for a couple of months to just kind of really investigate what was going on there. As I said, that was like always my long term ambition, was
Yeah.
to live there, right? And when I was there, there's just so many things that you see. You're like, oh wow, I could do this business or I could do that.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that I really kind of concentrated on initially, when I'd gone there, I'd done it thinking that I would move into the energy business, like renewable energy.
Yeah, that was what caught your eye, yeah.
That was what caught my eye, because a really good friend of mine, Tabia, he's in that space, and we talked a lot about it. And 2017, a lot of crypto was starting to get big, and there was a lot of projects that were using blockchain and tokenization for energy creation and stuff like that, especially in the developed world. So I wanted to just investigate what was going on. And when I went there, I came across an issue I had, which was I'd taken a bunch of clothes, and man, it was actually so hard to wash my clothes.
Wow.
Like literally, so like I went to like a local laundry, and I asked them, like, I want to wash all of these t-shirts, and they were quoting me prices per item. And as soon as someone quotes you a per item price, you
That's
start
premium.
thinking, wait, this isn't a premium item of clothing. It's not a suit or like a.
It's just a
It's
t-shirt,
just a
your
t-shirt, just a
basic
random
black t-shirt, yeah.
So I'm thinking, wait, why is this not being sold in a bulk thing? And I thought about, and I'd used laundromats in the UK. You're African, right? When it comes to like that deep winter, like washing the duvets, whatever. My mom, my grandma, they're like, do not use the machine at home. You gotta take it to the laundromat.
Yeah.
So I'd had that experience, and I thought, wait, why doesn't this business exist?
Yeah.
So I started thinking about that. But then I came back to London, and the daily grind caught up with me, right? I had to start working, and I started freelancing, writing blogs, which is what I'd like kind of been moving into recently at that time, sorry. And Seb actually put me on to like that idea a bit more, connected me with like my first client, and it took off from there. And that kind of sidetracks me in, not in a negative way, but it kind of took my attention away. Did that for a few months, and I was like, I needed to like actually get some experience behind me. I didn't feel super comfortable and confident in what I was doing. People were telling me the content was good, but if you're not feeling it yourself, you're thinking. So I started applying for jobs, and I got my first actual job as a fintech analyst at Business Insider.
Also
which
known
was-
as Insider right now. They did a little
Yeah.
rebrand. Yeah,
Exactly.
after
So
that.
it's rebranded to Insider, and so I spent a couple of years there, right, doing fintech, and like really just started to like learn a lot more about the tech ecosystem.
Yeah. And what was it like being at such a huge company like Business Insider, aka Insider?
It was so interesting, right? Because before I had done that, like I'd taken my own route for a lot of things, and like going your own direction is great, but actually, like what a lot of people don't talk about is that there's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty around it, because you think, wait, what if I'm doing this wrong, right? And you've got like friends of yours who are like well into their careers at that time, and it's impossible to not compare yourself and to
Yeah.
think.
Sure.
So I was like really excited, and honestly, after like 2 weeks of starting that job, it was a great job. I loved it. I started feeling this kind of weird feeling of like, damn, is this what I was waiting this whole time for, rushing for? Because I was like, the freelancing was amazing. I was traveling, being able to do work on my own time, and now I was kind of locked to a schedule. So I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe it's not like as it's kind of built up to be. But it was a great experience. I spent around a couple of years working there. I was really like super into it. Seb, as you remember, them times we used to like wake up super early together, do like our own freelancing stuff, and then I'd
In the
go to work.
mornings,
I was
yeah.
like fully on that kind of hustle and grind mode.
grind mode.
Honestly, I was
feel like
super
at
on
some
it.
point everyone needs to commit and just have that schedule where you're doing the above and beyond, and that puts you in the top percentile of opportunities that in hindsight people are like, oh my god, how did you work at Business Insider? How did you do that? Like, it's because of those hours and that mindset.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You know what it is? I think a lot of the times things pay off and it's compounded. When people talk about investing, it's really the results of investing, the best ones are over a period of time, and it compounds. And that's how I think I view skills as well. So I'd been writing for a period, not with the idea that I was a writer or something like that. I was doing it to make money, but I'd done it for so long that the skills did compound and actually gave me a kind of advantage when I got my job, right? And you need luck and opportunity. When you get it, you just have to kind of grasp it as best as you can. And during that time, it was perfect because like my mindset was like really ready to take that challenge on. So I was really working hard, grinding. And the more I was doing it, the more I loved my job. That's like you get more passionate about things you're good at and you're interested in because you're good at them. It's like a cyclical thing, it's like a loop. If you really don't if you don't like something and you don't work harder and you don't become better at it, you're never going to be passionate. But when you start working hard and then you start getting better at it, your passion grows as well. So that definitely built my passion for like the tech space. And then, over like the time I was working there, I was increasingly thinking, what, I really want to do a business myself. Like I was seeing all of these startups that were doing awesome things, they were getting funding, and I was like, why can't I do that myself?
Yeah.
That was
That classic thought, that classic,
yeah, exactly.
Why not me? Why not me? Yeah.
You're like, and you know what? It was like, again, like I think opportunity and luck are like a big part of success. And we were coming. That was a period too when really that conversation around equality, diversity was starting to really pick up.
Yeah.
So that meant people like me who had half a foot in that door, if you're willing to take that chance, there was a lot of opportunity opening up for you, right? You're both entrepreneurs, you've seen it, right? Like you start getting some of these opportunities, and I thought, all right, I want to grasp that too. And so like at the end of 2019, things had gone really well for me in life in terms of
Everything was
in a
good,
year and a
man.
bit, I had like, worked really hard, but I'd also been really lucky. I'd been lucky strategically as well. I didn't move out of my parents' house. I was like, 28 at that time, was saving a lot of money, was working a lot, and I managed to get like a small place. So things started to look really good for me. Then when I reached that point, I was like, this is the time in my life where I could be willing to take a big risk, right? When you become older, if you have a family, if you've got a partner and whatnot,
A bit hard,
it's
yeah.
much harder, yeah. So at that point, I started thinking about an idea to go back to Ethiopia to do a business. But you know, life isn't exactly as you plan it. Any entrepreneur will tell you. So I started, I'd start planning it, talked to a couple of people that I know who had either invested in businesses or had started their own businesses. Started to reach out to my network of friends. I built a pitch deck. I'd never done it before, but I'd been in that space for so long. I built one. I shared it with Seb. He was like shared it with his network, gave me some amazing feedback, and I thought, all right, I actually do have an idea. And that idea was this kind of taking that inspiration from the laundry issue I had in Addis, and I thought, wait, why don't I do like an on-demand subscription-based laundry service? Because Ethiopia is the hub for the African Union. It's where the
Yeah.
African Union is located. There's a lot of international organizations, and there was a lot of young people in the country who are now, joining the workforce, but that like the traditional infrastructure wasn't very suitable for them.
AKA, there's no washing machines, right?
No
No one owns
washing
a
machines.
washing machine.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, exactly. So there was no washing machines, and I was like, all right, this could be a great idea. Pitched it to a couple of people that I knew, and I actually managed to secure some early
Seed funding and that pre-seed
agreement
fund,
for
yeah.
some seed funding, right? So everything was great.
Set
So I
up,
left
ready to
my
go.
job.
You got
I was
everything.
like,
Wait, let's just get this right. So you're at the peak of your life.
yeah.
You'd bagged a sick job. You'd got yourself a nice house, a nice flat. Like you're at the pinnacle, right? And at that point, that's when you said, "F it, I'm gonna
I'm
take a
out."
risk. I'm out."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is when I said it. Yeah, like I think I'm lucky because I've always, for some reason or another, I've always done things my own way. Seb, you know this. Like
Yeah.
I went to uni in Holland. I
to
went to uni in
Australia,
Australia.
all
I
that
was just
kind of
doing
stuff,
random
yeah.
stuff. It was like the culmination of that. I had some self-confidence in the fact that I wanted to do things in a way that it wasn't just self-confidence. I also knew that's how I would respond to it. I'm the kind of person who needed to do something.
Love that.
If I failed,
Exactly.
it was a good lesson. But otherwise, I would just have like this thinking in my head, the back of my head, that would make me uncomfortable.
Wicked.
So things were really, like really good.
Everything was
And
there. You had your idea.
I had my idea.
This was like the solution. This is the
I was
answer.
like, oh
Yeah.
my
You're
God.
like,
I was like, I'm gonna be what?
And then what was reality?
And the reality was, I'd secured the agreement for funding, left my job end of Jan 2020, and boom, not 2 weeks later on, the world was different. COVID happened, right?
and you're in Ethiopia when COVID
I
happened.
hadn't gone. So I'd had a super stressful 18 to 2 years, right? Intense in terms of being work. So I wanted to take a little
Stuck in
time
that,
before and in that time, COVID happened. So obviously all of my plans were just essentially in disarray at that point, right? Because you had to kind of start thinking again. Oh, okay, how do I try to do what I wanted to do in this new world? Pandemic, whatnot. And honestly, that took me a while to kind of get through. One, I couldn't travel to Ethiopia. I wasn't working. And then, I had this agreement for funding, but I didn't know if that was going to come through given what was going on. So there was a period, probably 6-7 months, where I stayed in London, and I was just trying to do other things to keep myself busy with not abandoning my idea, but trying to find a way to kind of sustain it, over the long run, because the short term opportunity just had disappeared overnight.
That's facts. That's facts. We talk a lot about that as well, about how to fund your side hustle and really putting in that extra effort and really putting yourself in that sort of position where you're really trying to you're trying to stay afloat, but you're not trying to give up on your kind of idea. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's a hard balance to kind of have, especially during the pandemic when the world has kind of completely flipped. But it's crazy that we're actually speaking to you now. So that means, and we're talking about you setting up a business in Ethiopia. So you actually did go ahead and you actually did go to Ethiopia and you actually did try to do something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
is-
So, like that period was tough. I think like some of the stuff I had learned in my previous job as a result of what I was doing, right? I was covering all of these companies that were working on like financial wellness, financial well-being. I'd started adopting that. So I'd like actually managed to protect myself because I'd saved a lot, I'd invested a lot prior to COVID happening. So I was able to like actually have like some room to maneuver.
Yeah.
And that in the end, that time, which could have been, a pretty like stressful and bad period, actually turned out to be really good. It gave me an extended period to kind of think, read, and just kind of like also just figure stuff out myself about the things that I wanted to do. But I knew that I was super committed to going to Ethiopia because it wasn't about making money in the short run or being developing a sick business. It was really about the fact that like this has always been my dream, and I knew and in fact, COVID kind of made it easier in a way because I was like, the world is gonna be on pause. I can do this, and I have a legit excuse. If it doesn't work out, it just made me feel safe, And like I'm a super risk averse person. It might not come across it saying I did this and that, but actually I tried to like protect myself as much as possible. So I went to Ethiopia with this idea, with this plan. And then the second big shock that I just didn't see coming happened, right? Ethiopia had a civil war.
Whoa.
Wow.
I mean, politically you knew it was gonna happen, but I'd been in Ethiopia, I'd lived there, I'd be traveling there every few years, and this was like the biggest civil war we had in 30 years, and the disruption was insane. And quickly, as soon as I went to Ethiopia, I was lucky. I've got friends and family there, so I set up there and I started researching my business on the ground. Right, like I had my plans or whatnot, but you've got to like make sure what you think in your mind and what you've done on your desk research matches up to what you're seeing on the reality, and it didn't. Like I knew the business idea, I definitely knew it would work. I saw it. People were struggling to wash clothes. You had all of these new developments that were built, but they weren't built with the idea of a modern life. So these developments didn't have washing machines, for example. You've got stories of buildings that don't have access to water like that or machines. So I knew the business would work. But Ethiopia is also, a pretty poor country. We don't produce anything that is beyond primary resources like food or cattle or coffee. So you have to import everything. And the war had just meant that there was such a big problem with capital in the country. The government imposed a crazy set of like restrictions on
to
what
get
you can
money,
import
yeah.
into the country. So it was like food items, medicine, and equipment related to those things that were prioritized. So it was almost impossible to bring machinery like washing machines in. And if I couldn't import it at like a number of them at a scale, I wouldn't be able
It's not gonna
to
work,
do the
basically,
business.
yeah.
And that was like pretty scary because I'm like in a country that I haven't lived in for a long time with an idea that now looks like it's probably over. I was like, God damn,
God dang.
God damn, what am I gonna do? Um, and yeah, so that was like really the second big kind of issue that I faced. And that's what forced me, as you said earlier on, to pivot my business idea, right?
What's the importance of pivoting?
I think pivoting is critical. It's difficult because if you're completely in belief with your business, it's very hard to see how it might not work or why you need to pivot. But at the same time, there's so many reasons why businesses fail, right? It's not just and why they succeed equally. It's not just about how good your idea is. It's not just about how good you are as an entrepreneur or as a leader of people. It's opportunity, it's luck, it's timing, right? And like a lot of the big businesses we see today, like Netflix wasn't great just because it was Netflix and they had a great idea. Other people had done a Netflix in the 90s or attempted to do it. Mark Cuban is a big example of someone who tried to do a very similar type of business, but the timing wasn't right. And the internet at that time couldn't handle that capability. People didn't have access to that, right? So when Netflix was able to do it, of course they executed well, but also the timing was a right point for them to be able to do that. And like that's the thing about pivoting. You've got to make sure, as much as you believe in your business and your idea and yourself, you've also got to make sure that you're not kind of just trying to push against an impossible rock to move. You've got to be aware of that. And for me, that was the
You're saying
situation.
them washing machines were pretty hard to move, yeah.
The washing machine, and it's like the issue with that is, think about a country that's not super developed, that like the UK, right? The infrastructure is pretty weak. Electricity goes out. You don't have plumbing systems like the way we do here. And then you've got to try and import, 20 washing machines, let's say. It's a small number, but you've got to import it from China, for example. That's going to take
It's gonna take
months
ages,
at
especially
best.
the
But it might
logistics
take-
infrastructure isn't even that great in Ethiopia. But that's
exactly.
crazy. So how do you get from washing machines to pet food?
Yeah, so
And tell us a bit more about your pet food kind of business and how you pivoted into that, because it's pretty much the first pet food business in Ethiopia actually at this moment. So that's cool. Like, but how did it go from washing machines to pet food?
yeah, so like it didn't take that long for me when I was in Addis to realize that my idea wasn't gonna work, and that's why for me pivoting was easy, right? Because if you've done a business and you can't see the challenges so easily, it's difficult to know when you should kind of leave that and move to a different thing. But for me, it was pretty clear I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, like the process, my funding wouldn't be able to like actually cover what I needed to do it. So I had to start thinking again. And really, I didn't start thinking about a business again. At that point, I was like, ultimately, when I'd gone to Ethiopia, I'd started to come to terms with the idea that it's going to take a long time for me to be able to be super successful in the country. But what I wanted to do was spend some time there figuring out the way people operated, the way businesses operated, the way government operated. So I thought, all right, I still want to learn that and find a way to do it. But it's difficult if you're not working to learn that, because things in theory, it's good to know it, but if you're not seeing it on the reality, it's really hard to know, like, if you're not seeing stuff on the ground, like how things really operate, what the real challenges are. And so at that time, when I was living in Addis, I was living in this like house on my own outside of the city, and I really wanted to get a dog just to like keep me company. And I thought, all right. And I was talking to my other friend Seb, funnily enough, his name is Seb, and he's like this German Rasta dude who's been living in Ethiopia for like 10 years. And he's like, I'm like, bro, do you know where I can get a dog from? He's like, don't get a dog. I was like, what? You've got a dog? What's going on? He's like, you can't get food for it. I was like, wait, what do you mean you can't get food for a dog? I see hella dogs. He's like, it's impossible. It's like, there's a couple of places that sold food for dogs, but they're like usually butchers and stuff like this, where they're like the cut off meats, whatnot. And he said, it's horrific quality and it runs out like that in an instant. I was thinking, wait, this sounds impossible. Like we don't have processed dog food, but we have meat everywhere. We've got,
Wow.
I think we can see thousands of dogs just on the street. These men are surviving, so why can't you get dog food for your dog? And he started explaining, like, oh yeah, there's no one really doing it, no one's focused on it. And I thought, all right, why can't I just do this, right? Initially, I thought my head went to like importing dog food, but then I ran into that same trouble I ran into with the washing machine, right? It's stuff like that is seen as a luxury, so it moves way down the pecking order of what the government was supporting or what wanted people to go into. And at that time, I was, again, this is where luck comes in. I had started seeing my girlfriend, and she's a chef, and I was like, and it was honestly, it felt like a light bulb moment, right? Like in hindsight, maybe it wasn't, but when I look back at it, I was like, wait, you're a chef, you know all about food and nutrition. I know it's not for humans, but surely you can come up with a recipe for this business. And she wasn't really into it. She's like, what are you talking about? It's like, because who would be? You're like a cook
You've been cooking for people.
You make food for people. And like I told her this idea like after we'd gone to an event that she was catering, like a really fancy event with like actual ministers and senior business people. And she's like, what is this guy on? I'm just still surprised she didn't like just leave me right there and then. But I started thinking a lot more about it, and I convinced her, I was like, there's not really like at that point, because of what I had seen, I didn't want to do the business based on making money or it being big. Like at that point, my focus had shifted to just trying to figure out the way things worked. And I thought the way I could do that is by doing a business, seeing all the challenges. And we talked about it more and more. And the idea became increasingly appealing because you didn't need anything to do it. We started that business initially with no more than £100. So it was a super bootstrapped, lean business idea, right? I managed to we bought the equipment for making food. We just bought a big pot, and we had like a cooker at home. So all I had to do was just go to the market, buy some vegetables, buy some meat based on what Abby, who's my girlfriend, had recipe she created, and we made our first batch of food. And we just made an Instagram, posted it on Instagram, and just did one sponsored ad on it. And we thought no one responded, and we thought, oh damn, maybe this isn't a good business idea. But a few days later on, we're actually looking at the Instagram, and I clocked it's because I wasn't following anyone, and I had hella requests hidden. There's 20, 30 requests of people being like, yo, where could I get this dog food? And we thought, all right, we do have something. So we started giving some samples out to our friends. And I mean, to the degree, to say it was bootstrapped, the way we packaged the food was we got plastic sheets, just clear plastic sheets. And we used her hair straightener to actually glue the sides together to make a packaged food.
Wow.
So it was super, super bootstrapped. No, not a lot of investment. And we started giving samples out, and we started responding to people on Instagram, and people started actually enjoying the product. We did some good content on it, filming it, and the food looked really good. I mean, it was really high quality.
What's the
food.
Instagram called?
It's called Chilla.
Nice.
How do you spell it?
CHILA. And it started to get some good traction. That was I guess our MVP stage. And we started iterating it, and it wasn't a long time to do it, right? Because it wasn't a big business. There wasn't a lot of stuff involved. It wasn't a tech business. It was a super analog business with some tech enablement on the selling side of it and the promotional side. And that's really just how we kind of got the idea together, and we just did our first kind of start of it.
I love that. So that was your MVP.
It was.
Let's fast forward now to where you guys are at now, and then we can build back. So where are you right now with Chilla?
Right now,
yeah.
So right now we've got a pet shop in Ethiopia, and we've got our dog food product is still selling. We managed to get licensing to be able to sell and produce dog food. It was the first of its kind in Ethiopia, specifically dogs. And then we've got 3 employees full time running it. All 3 of them are women, which is amazing because it's not just about the business, but we actually create an opportunity for people and kind of really show people that you can have an idea and actually do a business and support the economy in that way. Often when people talk about Africa, it's so from the idea of charity or that kind of way of thinking, and I've never been comfortable with it. So that's probably the biggest thing that is awesome right now about that business is it's completely functional. It's not super profitable, but it's enough to maintain itself. And it took us. We only did it for 6-7 months, and it's been running for over a year without us being there.
That's crazy. So the business is actually running by itself, and you're not even there managing operations or anything like that.
In all honesty, I barely do anything for the business right now, and it goes back to the thing what I remember throughout that time I was in Addis. I'm quite close with my dad, and we talk quite a lot. And I remember emphasizing to him, I don't really care about making money from this business. I didn't invest a lot of money in it. We invested some more later on. Again, not a significant amount, probably no more than £1,000 or £2,000. And that was to really just buy stock to sell. Apart from that, there wasn't a lot of investment, but it taught me a lot. I learned about the bureaucracy of trying to get licensing.
How was that? Tell us about it. So for people that want to start businesses and operate in Africa, one thing that you got to know about is the bureaucracy, the corruption, and just how messed up the systems are there. So this is a good example. And I've spoken to a lot of African entrepreneurs, and this is like a key problem that they see in different parts of Africa. So, first-hand experience, like how hard was it to get to get a license? Like this is the first license that you're getting from the Ethiopian government for selling dog food. Like, how hard was it?
I mean, honestly, the process is crazy, right? Like, as you said, there's corruption at every level, and it's not, like, I don't think that corruption is just an African thing. There's corruption across every country in the world. The UK is probably way more corrupt than most African countries, as we are seeing in the news right now, right? But the difference is in places like the Ethiopia, corruption is super petty and it's at the very low level. So you're trying to pay to like just get someone to give you information or to talk to you, right? In the UK, if you're trying to do most things, the institutions are there. It's at the big level at huge sums of money.
Or
where
you
the
could ask
corruption is,
Google as
right?
well.
You can
You
ask
could go
Google.
online,
You
ask
can't do that
Google.
shit. But there's no information that's available on internet like that. Everything is guarded with, it's like very personal information, anecdotal, people putting you onto other things. So it was really hard. And I guess what I learned about it was that you just can't do anything about it because you can try and fight against the tide, but all it's gonna do is just tire you out, really take your energy because that's gonna frustrate you. That's gonna really reflect on your business. You're not gonna care about that because you're kind of just so pissed off of everything else. So really, I started really experiencing the problem when we was first trying to rent our store location. Before we'd done the licensing, like probably not a good thing to do, but I didn't even try to get licensing. I was like, we're so small, no one's gonna care.
Mhm.
But once we decided to start a store, because it felt like that was the next logical
Official, but
move.
yeah.
Once we were trying to rent a store, we found a spot, and you have to go to like an office to actually sign a lease agreement with this individual that you are renting the store from. So the government has to kind of facilitate that in a
Yeah.
way. Even though we've agreed our deal, you've got to get contracts written with them, and you've got to pay there. And
Wow.
because I didn't know anything, and I knew I didn't know anything, I asked my aunt to come and like, hey, just can you look over these contracts? I don't read in Amharic. Abby does, but not really well.
Oh, yeah.
And she came, and as soon as she came, and we're trying to just before we're signing the contract, she's like, no way, we're not signing this contract. And she's seen like they're trying to like bump us off with money using terminology that you don't know. So that was like a starting point for realizing how difficult it was to
Okay.
do business there.
So Defos ones for those trying to go back to
Lawyer
Africa.
up.
Lawyer up, or get an auntie. Get an auntie that's gonna be on your side. If you can't get a lawyer, get an auntie
Yeah.
that's
I
local.
recommend lawyering up.
Lawyering up is a great idea, but I also think having someone who's local
Yeah.
is so important because once I started asking her for help, it started to make my life way easier.
Yeah.
And it really saves you so much time. Like I think sometimes as people who start businesses, there is a big idea of being super frugal and saving money. And what you end up ignoring is how much your time costs. So sometimes you just got to spend some money for the right information for people to actually chase stuff up for you.
So what's the power of partnerships then? Because that sounds like the power of people and partnerships.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, because at the end of the day, I always say, right, like Seb and I have always had this discussion about like when we are younger about investing in businesses or having co-founders, right? And it's really like, do you want to control 100% of a small pie, or do you want to have a small share of a really bigger pie? And that's the thing about partnerships, is if you can and open to trusting other people who have a different skill set to you, that's only going to allow you to get better at what you're doing and allow you to focus on something that you're strong at, so that you're not trying to learn a different set of skills and do something half-heartedly or to a low quality. So when I was like started getting my aunt to come and help us, and over time, as she proved like her qualities, I actually hired her as like a full-time manager. It saved me so much time. So I would get her to do bureaucratic stuff, right? And she would know how to get around it. So just as an example, for the licensing, it took me about 3 days of going to these offices, and they would literally at lunchtime, they're like, we're closed. I've been waiting there for like 2 hours, and they just, no, there's no queue, we're closed.
That's mad.
They're like, just come back
That's
tomorrow,
mad.
and you just spent 2 hours there for nothing.
And there's no one there. Like,
There's no. The next day you go there, you wait 3 hours. There's no system. What does that mean? There's no internet, so you can't. So I did that for like a week, and then I was like, all right. So I got her to come. But the next day she had it all done. And it's like, do you get what I mean? That's a skill I can never. I could learn it, but it's just a waste of time for me to spend weeks and weeks doing that. And that's the thing about partnerships is obviously you need trust. That's an important element of having a partnership. But if you can trust people and you do have partnerships, then it's a way to really like accelerate your business or your kind of what you're trying to get to, right? It's the way to get to it the fastest way. And as both of you know, I work in covering financial services, and that's a big theme I see all the time, right? Like big companies always are keen on partnerships, even if they don't do them well. Because at the end of the day, if you're a big corporate, for example, it's super hard to kind of like actually be agile and be able to produce things in a way a startup does. So that's why you want to partner with small startups, because they have a different set of operating criteria. They don't have the same issues that you might have and the same challenges. So I think partnership is like the key to business success as well.
Facts. So, we can talk a bit more, but I think we should do some questions and get some advice for people that want to go up and start their own businesses in Africa. Beej, I know you're looking to touch the continent later on this year. You're an entrepreneur. You've done
Absolutely.
businesses here. Would you ever consider doing a business in Africa?
The foregone conclusion is absolutely yes. I think the opportunity to go and do something. I think just listening to you, Micky, it kind of rang true to like the values I'm moving with when it comes to Africa. There's been a notion from what I've studied and what I've seen of Westerners or those from other economies coming up with solutions from here and taking it there, rather than spending time in a local market, seeing what people want, seeing what's not working, and listening. Because when you listen, cues come. They were given to us for a reason. So, then the story you even told about, the guy who couldn't find good food for his dog. I'm sure there's gonna be so many other stories. People who can't, for example, can't afford to not have light and electricity not working in their houses anymore, or can't whatever. There's always things, but you only get that data from spending time with people. I suppose something that I want to figure out is like what is the way to approach licenses and bureaucracy in different countries in Africa. Obviously, you've tackled it in Ethiopia with your aunt there, but licenses feel like a big thing that people just do not think about enough.
I think
Because we don't need it here. We just
Yeah.
go online, you buy online business, you start trading. Start up Starling Bank, you can have a business in a week.
Yeah. And that's a big challenge in
Matter
Africa,
of days,
isn't it?
even.
Yeah. Hours even, really, right? You could just literally start your whole business in an hour or two here.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big challenge in a place like Africa. And I think that's why you should prioritize localized knowledge, people who know the environment. Because again, sometimes I think broadly, this isn't just for Africa. I think broadly, entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs have this idea that their idea is the magic sauce.
Yeah.
Your idea should never be your magic sauce. It should be you and the way you think about it, your business, right? Because if your idea is the magic sauce, then the problem is what happens if someone copies that, or if a big competitor comes and starts doing what you're doing, then you're losing out, right? Like your magic sauce is the way you're able to think about things, ideate, and move, shape shift, and whatever it is. If that's the way you approach it, then that makes it easier for you to start approaching people with the idea of partnerships and support, and then actually not worrying about, oh, I'm not going to tell this person my idea because they might copy me, right? Like you start realizing actually the chance of people copying you at that level is very small. There's a lot of reasons people don't just go out and do businesses like that. But the key is if you start to think about that, then the key is to really actually tap into localized knowledge. Not only will they help you in terms of what you said, BJ, around the licensing or whatever, but they will put you onto things that have happened before that didn't work, right? There is probably a whole like graveyard of people who had similar ideas that didn't work. Why is that? And that localized knowledge will give you a way better understanding than some theoretical thinking that might not be relevant for the context, you know? And Congo, for example, where you're from, right? Or Ethiopia. Yes, they're both in Africa, but they're still two different countries with two different operating systems, right? So that's why the localized knowledge is the key, because things in those countries are going to be different across,
100%. And when you're talking about that, it made me think around the kind of mindsets and values that the diaspora in the UK can be adopting to help us prepare for a future. Because we all know that Africa is a huge market. We see it in the news, especially now that growth in Western markets has kind of slowed down. A lot of people here are starting to switch on to the idea that the next 10 years of growth or 20 years of growth is going to be away. And a lot of people have links back to Africa. I know us, we grew up on Orkent Road, a lot of Nigerians, Ghanaians, that kind of thing. So for me, it's a question around the mindset and also what should people be doing when they travel back to different African countries. So you talked about the operating systems. Obviously, I've been to Ethiopia quite a lot. I know the operating systems of Ethiopia. I've been to Kenya. I was born in Kenya. I studied there a little bit. I understand the operating systems a little bit of Kenya, and I know that they're different from Ethiopia. 2K19/2K20, I got to go to Ghana, to Afro Nation. And I was like, oh my gosh, Ghana is like so different. Like the operating system is so different from Kenya or Ethiopia. So my question to you, like we see a lot of people now going back to Ghana, Nigeria for Dirty December, all of this kind of vibes. Like people going to Kenya, people are starting to travel back to Africa. Like what kind of mindsets and ways of thinking can we adopt? You talked about localized knowledge and localized experts, but what else can we be doing when we're going to different parts of Africa? We're going to be going to Africa. We're going to be traveling to different countries. Like what things can people be doing and how should people be thinking when they're on holiday, for example, thinking, can I set up a business here? Is this like a good market?
Yeah, I mean, I think with stuff like that, I always think there are like, in general, like I think people who end up being really successful in businesses, and I'm not, I'm talking people who build really big businesses. They are solving a problem that they know, like so, like someone who is gonna do really well in a business, in my opinion, has experience with what they're doing, or is a problem that they faced in their own lives, and they could see the value of that, right? And I think that's why when you go to somewhere like Africa, if you're not living there, if you're not a long-term resident, the key is, even if you go with an idea, a business idea, to try to like avoid that and try to kind of think about things in that context.
Okay.
So I had always wanted to do a fintech in Ethiopia, for example, right? But there are so many challenges to doing that fintech in the country. I know what the pain points are, but there are so many challenges. For me, like doing the dog business, the dog food business, it solved the problem for me right there and then. But then it taught me a lot about how things operate.
Okay, I like that.
What the little hacks are, right? Oh, someone who knows this, you should get them to help you with this. And then oh, if you're trying to get funding, you should think about. Do you get what I mean? It's like you need to like go there open and look at the problems as people see it as well. And BJ said something super important earlier on. Listen. When you're there, you literally just listen to people, because so again, in the space I work in, one of the things I really have a problem with is this crypto industry, right? Because a lot of people in the crypto space talk about financial inclusion, and they're always like, crypto will help people in developing countries. And I'm like, bruh, have you ever talked to a person in a developing country? I'm from Ethiopia, right? How is someone in Ethiopia living in some village with no light gonna download MetaMask on their smartphone, right? Get Bitcoin when there's no access to foreign capital anyway, and then start staking their crypto to start becoming financially independent? It's ridiculous. So it's like you need the localized element also means listening to people and actually seeing people's problems. A lot of people in these countries know what their issues are, and they have a good idea of how to solve it. They just don't have the opportunity and resources to do it. And so like places like Africa, in my opinion, they're awesome places for businesses, because actually the risk isn't like the UK where you have to be super innovative and super different. The challenge there is actually being able to listen well, take into account what people are saying, and then use your experience of what you've seen in countries like the UK or the West, and trying to be that kind of connective tissue between the two. It's like, this is what these people are telling
Yeah.
me. This is why they're telling me this doesn't work. This is what I've seen in these countries work. How can I marry those two?
Yeah.
And I think that's like always that's a great foundation for thinking about businesses.
I love that. So, quick one about Chilla. What's the future for Chilla? So you've gone from an Instagram page to setting up your first shop. You're hiring
With
3 employees.
employees. Yeah.
Bro, what's the future? You've got the first pet food business in Ethiopia. What does the future look like for Chilla? Like, how are you going to scale? Are you thinking of scaling it? Are you thinking of opening more shops? And any challenges around that?
Yeah, I think the honest answer is I don't know. I think earlier on we touched upon pivoting, right?
Yeah.
And as much as I love the business and what it stands for and what the plan was, it's also not a business that I'm super focused on right now because it doesn't align with my broader goals right now, right? As I said, my long-term vision is to move to Ethiopia. I'm gonna see how long we can sustain the business, support it, but at the same time, for me, it served its purpose really well already. It's given me access to the country that I want to live in. It's given me a lot of education. You know, on my CV, I always put like that experience was like my own like kind of like almost business school kind of
Yeah.
teaching, right?
You're an accelerator in a way. Like,
Exactly, and that's all I needed from it. So I'm trying to also figure that out at the moment, but
okay.
probably I don't want to scale it. I don't want to necessarily do that right now, just because I don't want to do it half-heartedly.
Yeah, I heard that.
And that's why pivoting is important. Like sometimes, like you don't have to start a business to make millions out of it. The lessons you learn from it will then help you with your next business, and the lessons from that will help with your next business. Right? You know, that's how I think great entrepreneurs are. They don't think about success in just terms of money or capital, but also in terms of education, lessons, experiences. And so for me, it's hit all of those. Apart from like, it's not made me a millionaire by any chance. Not made me.
Not yet. Not
No,
yet.
not
Not
yet.
yet.
But like it's done for me what more than what I want to. So like now my next thing is trying to figure out like, all right, what are the lessons I've learned from that? And then how do I kind of apply them for, the next venture I want to kind of do in Ethiopia, which is going to probably be something that's going to occupy me for a long time there.
No, Mickey, man, you literally dropped so many gems. If you had to crystallize in a couple of sentences the mindset that you are moving with in 2023 with your opportunities in your career, where's your head at?
20 hard, but I think I would say openness to opportunities, experiences, and learning. I don't want to sound like a box of jargons, but intentionality in terms of just doing things with an idea of doing things, and ultimately also just experiencing the journey and enjoying the journey without the end goal in mind. Those are the 3 things I'm like trying to keep really at the forefront of my thinking. And so far, it's been, I know it's only been 3 weeks, but it's been pretty good.
Yes. We love that. Guys, don't forget to check out Mickey. That's a great episode. Seb, I got so many gems from that, man.
Unbelievable amount of gems for all of you people looking to potentially set up your business in Africa. This is the episode for you. Mickey's given it to us. He's given us an honest take on everything. He ain't spun it out, no BS. He's given it to you exactly how it is. So we appreciate that, man, for dropping those blocks.
Come on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
As always, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, get in touch with us. Look out for the next episode. Bye.